Fall and winter offer some challenges about how best to treat your soil and how best to treat your plants. And there's a lot of factors to consider. We're going to cover that in this video, so you'll learn all about the best way to improve your soil during fall and winter so that spring everything's ready to go. I'm John Valentino, president of John and Bobs Corporation. I'm a landscape architect and a landscape contractor and a general engineering contractor. I'm here with Chip Valentino, and we're here. He's happy today because it's so much cooler today. I don't know what happened, but high's only going to be about 80. We're here in late September. We're here at a site that we were hired to, we didn't install it originally, but we were hired to get it ready for a party that's coming up at the end of October. And so we did a lot of pruning and improving the soil. We want to feed this soil and feed the plants so that in late October everything's looking its best. In the West you can do that. In this video we'll talk about different parts of the country and how best to treat your soil and your plants, and it does vary by area that you live. So I'll talk a little bit about that. Tune in right to the end of this video because we'll keep contrasting and comparing the best things to do for your soil and your plants depending on where you live, and we'll give you pointers for all parts of the country. In customer mail to us, we get a lot of concern that maybe our products work great in California, but they won't work in tougher climates with worse environmental problems and worse soil problems, or perceived worse soil problems. And the reality is soil everywhere. This concept of building life in the soil is a universal concept that will work all over the world. What does cause some variation, which we want to cover today, is the climate. First of all, there are different microbes in the soil in all different locations. So lots of our products are feeding microbes and encouraging microbes rather than providing microbes, although we do provide some basic ones to start the process. The thing that we have to really consider is the climate, and that will change the time of the year we do certain things and we don't do certain things. So I say soil is soil. We do the same types of things to build soil, life in the soil. That's a universal benefit. So in mild climates like in the West, like where we are, we're big time go right now in terms of feeding plants and feeding the soil, especially if you're trying to make things look as good as possible through the fall and through the winter. We have a very mild weather even through the winter, although we do get temperatures below freezing. And only in December and January the soil will pretty much go dormant because the highs will be low and many lows will be below 32 degrees. We do have to worry a little bit about heavily fertilizing, say, citrus, and you don't want to encourage it to put on a lot of growth because even here we could have some damage from frost. But most plants, we want them to grow. All these annuals that we planted here, the dwarf marguerites and the pansies and the snapdragons and the Iceland poppies, all those things. We want them to start growing and blooming now for this event that's going to be here in late October. We also prune some roses severely so that they'd sprout and be blooming in late October because they look kind of ratty from the summer. So we're fully fertilizing everything with all the range of our products. We're using Maximize for the soil and Nourish Biosol for the plants for macro and micronutrients. We're using Optimize. We're using Penetrate Liquid Biotiller, all to try to get the soil as healthy as possible, as fast as possible, and get these plants thriving as quickly as possible. If we get them healthy now and growing strong now, you'll find that they hold right through the winter with excellent color, and that's really the key to them looking good in the winter. And we have a mild enough winter that that's very possible. Other parts of the country is a different story. Recently, because of the season, we've had a lot of questions about exactly what to do in terms of fertilizer and plant health. One lady from Arkansas wrote in a very interesting question explaining that they used our products and they saw some improvement. They used the products just a month or two ago and lots of good things seem to be happening, and she wants to make sure those good things continue. But she's concerned because her mom is advising her that not a good idea to fertilize plants right before a harsh winter, which there's a lot of wisdom in mom's advice. I usually listen to my mom. Usually she's right. So as opposed to mild climates and in the West where everything's a go and we're fully feeding the soil and all the plants, that would be a mistake in many parts of the country where we're expecting very cold weather, and maybe even cold weather has already began. The problem is the soil will go dormant soon, and the point that the letter writer made is we don't want to encourage growth now that will be damaged by this cold weather. So in more harsh climates, cold weather climates, I'd prefer to just focus on the soil. And by focusing on the soil, I think the best way, there's a number of ways to do that. You can use, regular homemade, really good compost, but I think the simplest, easiest, least expensive way is with our soil optimizer, which is like a concentrated organic matter. And that you need very little, 3 to 5 pounds per thousand, so most people can do that very affordably on their entire garden and use that, and that breaks down slowly over the fall and the winter and will be fully engaged when spring comes. So you're doing something for your plants and your soil during this time where it appears nothing is happening. Mainly what you're doing is you're activating the soil optimizer. It doesn't really go to work yet. It won't go to work until soil temperatures rise in your area to an active level, but it starts to break down, it gets ready to work, whereas if you applied it in the spring, it would take a lot longer to activate because it does break down very slowly. So right now, excellent time in your cold weather climates to apply our soil optimizer pretty much everywhere, turf, planting areas, and everything, in the hopes of it really being ready to take off in the spring and starting to break down right now. Maybe you've got some great ideas on how to improve soil and plants through the fall and the winter. We're always eager to hear how other gardeners treat their gardens during this important time. An important time that can be ignored because it looks like nothing's happening. Let us know in the comments what you do in your garden. So then our fourth point applies to everybody, regardless of where you are. The most beneficial, cost-effective, efficient, value-laden approach to changing your soil, improving your soil, feeding all your plants is a generous application of our products or somebody else's products in the early spring. And early will vary depending on where you live. Early in our area is February 15th, which is actually still winter, but we can start, the soil temperatures start rising, things start waking up, and we actually get maybe the very first things blooming like forsythia about then. And then in other parts of the country, early spring is much later. But it's a go in spring, and if you're only going to apply once a year, I would apply in spring. That's where you're going to get the most for your money and the most value. And at that time, most of the time, I would be recommending blend, which is optimize, maximize, nourish, biosol, and penetrate liquid biotiller. Sometimes, depending on your situation and what you're trying to accomplish, I would not recommend all the products just from a value standpoint. So customers like our friends in Arkansas that said there's still a lot of improvement to be made, even though they've seen some, they're going to see way more improvement in early and mid-spring. That's when things really happen if you treat your soil properly. You can find links to the products mentioned in the description below. You can also get our guide to soil-based gardening in the description below, and it'll tell you everything about our whole system of improving your soil, which we believe is the key to successful gardening. So the plant of the week last week was a common name fern pine, botanical name Podocarpus gracilio, a really useful plant that can be used for so many different things, including the way it was used at the Wynn, which is a big evergreen screen, has that lush riparian lacy look. Fern and pine is a good common name because it describes exactly what it looks like. So this week's plant is an interesting one, obviously an evergreen one that stays pretty low. You can see it at this garden. It looks like it belongs in a Asian or Japanese garden, and it's got a striking habit. Take a look at it, see if you can identify it, give us the whole genus, species, and cultivar. A related video that we did some time back is called Fall and Winter Lawn Fertilizer, and it's more for mild parts of the country, but check it out. It's excellent if you want your lawn to be as green as possible during the fall and winter.